and do not reflect those of the Evening Rush Network. Viewers' discretion is advised.
Yo. Usually you hear claps and applause and all that other good stuff, but prayers out to my good brother Sean Don. Hopefully everything is fine in his family. He had a little bit of emergency, and he's usually the man behind the scenes with all the claps and the applause and the laughter and all that other good stuff. But we're gonna give you still the same energy, all right? Yeah, we're gonna give you the same energy. This is Plugged with Molly and Joe, and our guest host for this season, Zachariah Israel. Shout out to Zach. Yo, we definitely appreciate your input, everything you bring to the show. You edgy, you know what I'm saying? You borderline, you edgy, you know what I mean? And Joe, welcome back. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You know what I mean? You look. Hey, what I just realized, I'm looking now, Zach. What I'm looking at is I'm looking at a refreshed Joe. Where's the hair on the face, brother?
Well, I decided to, you just noticing. No, I decided to start a little fresh. I've been growing it out for like almost 4 years, and it's one of those things where I'm just trying to freshen up a little bit, if you will, So
as you can see, me and Zachariah, we go with the.
Listen, I'm growing it back. I noticed when I
go with the full. We go with the full beard variety.
I noticed when I cut it though, I start seeing gray on the edges. So I'm like, okay, that's my sign of wisdom. So I said, every once in a while, you got to start over to continue what you're doing. So don't worry, it'll be back soon. But I just had to start a little fresh.
Me personally, man, listen, I like the grays, man. I like the grays. But straight up and down, listen, Zach is here, Joe is here. I'm excited. I hope everybody else is excited to hear what we got going on. Topic of the day, Colin Kaepernick, quarterback to black activist. All right. He had a documentary of some sort. I mean, you could call it a documentary, you could call it
autobiography.
A biopic. You can call it different. Whatever you want to call it. It's very eye opening, and it's so eye opening that we have 3 parts to it. This is part 1 of 3. There's 6 episodes. We implore you go out there and check it out and check it out for yourself. See what we're noticing about it to where we wanted to dissect it. We thought that to try to crunch all 6 episodes into one show would not do it any service.
Absolutely.
All right. So Colin Kaepernick, quarterback to black activist, part 1 of 3 is tonight. Of course, we always do. We pay homage. We pay homage or we give flowers. So this week is the time to pay homage. Joe, myself, Zachariah, we got a few, of course, we got somebody that we might have said before, and we just want to give them their flowers again. You understand what I'm saying? Or we might come up with somebody new or somebody that you never even heard of. I've learned about a few people in this segment, to be honest with you. Between Joe and between Zachariah, I've learned about a few people. So, and I've learned about a few people on a personal level. You know what I mean? Zachariah brought up Tupac one time, correct?
That's right.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Joe brought up some personal situations as well. And then when you think about it and when you guys hear it, it's like it's mainstream, but this is their personal lives. So, yeah, paying homage and giving flowers is what we do, And then we got current events. Current events is about things that's happening locally, nationwide. I think today we're focusing a little bit locally because there's a lot of things that happen here in the New York City area. Zachariah might be in California, but his heart is in New York always.
That's right. I left it out there.
Right.
So you left your heart in New York City. I thought the song was "You Left Your Heart in San Francisco."
Nah, they got the lyrics wrong.
You better not leave it in San Francisco.
They got it. They got the lyrics wrong on that one.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. The platforms we on, you already know. Joe, hit us with the platforms we on.
Amazon Music, Pandora, Stitcher, Podchaser, TuneIn, Reasons Podcast, Google's Podcast, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Anchor.fm, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Mixcloud, iTunes Podcast, the Evening Rush Network.com, of course, and also on the Evening Rush Network app. So there's a lot of ways to get connected with us. So any one of those ways, you'll get connected with us.
All right. We usually talk about sports. It's nothing really to talk about. Indiana sucks. The Knicks suck.
Mhm.
You know, Brooklyn is still doing their thing. Shout out to Sean Dawn. I'm gonna give you your props while you're not here. See, I gave him his flowers because
Right.
he's not here.
No gunshots today.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what he would have did. So I had to fill it in for him.
Exactly. You filled in for him, Zach. Yeah. Zach said I filled in for him. Yeah. So you know how we do, right? So we go into our next segment, which is paying homage. Okay. This is our paying homage section. Usually we get claps and applause and all kinds of loudness going on and whatnot. All right, but we don't get that today because, again, prayers out to Sean Dawn and his family. All right, paying homage. Joe, who you got this week?
Well, this is interesting because everybody knows this person I'm about to bring up. And I don't know if we've ever done him on the show. I can't remember. But I said this would be a perfect time. I'm bringing up the late, great Michael Joseph Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Aforementioned the king of pop. Born August 29th, 1958, Gary, Indiana. 8 of 10 children. Yes, the GOAT of music, if you will. I brought up Michael Jackson because I recently went to go see MJ the Musical on Broadway.
Wow.
And his story was just, you talk about somebody who got their flowers while they were alive and are still getting their flowers today. So many people who don't even know of Michael Jackson still love what he did. And there was a particular point in time where I talked about it was mentioned from 79 to like 1982 from Off the Wall to Thriller. Michael had renaissance, if you will, of his music and of his career. He wanted to be known as the biggest Black artist to date. So when he did Off the Wall, it didn't really receive a lot of accolades. And it made him mad because he thought that he did so much. Like he took his soul and put it into all of that. And he didn't get any accolades. And he was upset for a long time. So what did Michael do? He went back into the lab and created Thriller. Which shocked everything, killed everyone. So when I hear that story, I'm sitting there going, this is somebody who really took his ball and ran with it and said, you know what? Y'all gonna make me look like this? Watch what I do next. And I was watching the 1984 American Music Awards. He won like 8 or 10 awards in that show. And after he got the third one, he came up to the mic and said, can y'all hear me now?
Oh,
when
wow.
I said, Mike is telling y'all something. He's like, listen. And he's very humble. He's very quiet. But he was like, can y'all hear me now? Like, y'all want to mess with my stuff before? Like, I'm getting everything right now. And his way of being cocky, but at the same time, let y'all know Michael Jackson ain't going nowhere. So I wanted to pay homage to that because he showed us how to do it, especially in the music industry. He showed us how to overcome the obstacles. If y'all don't look at him and say, well, that's a prime example of what we should be doing in the music industry, and still kept his nature until the day.
And not just the music industry when it comes down to Michael Jackson, because
humanitarian, period.
He was one of the biggest humanitarians, and he was about our civil rights. He was in the fight. Yeah. Because when you talk about songs like "They Don't Care About Us," listen, I don't care what nobody said. That song inspires me to this day. We can play it. I could play it right now, and I'm inspired. You know what I mean? So,
Black and White, Man in the Mirror.
Yes.
Man in the Mirror. Man in the Mirror is personal. That's why I even bring that up. Man in the Mirror is personal. I even talk about that song. I might have to might have to do something to you or something. You know what I mean? That song is personal. That's just between me and the Man in the Mirror.
Right.
So, Zach, who you got this week as far as who you're paying homage to?
Well, we're gonna keep it along in stream with the theme. So I'm gonna
music Music.
Yeah,
Okay.
music. We're gonna bring up the late great Marvin Gaye.
Ah,
That's my
wow.
man right there.
Man.
Um,
Woo!
a pioneer of his era. He's been dubbed the Prince of Motown, the Prince of Soul, responsible for subgenres like Midnight Love,
Neo Soul.
neo soul. So I mean, just such an originator and also revolutionary in the way he wrote songs. Everything was heartfelt. We know him most for things like sexual healing, heard it through the grapevine, let's get it on. But my personal favorites as far as what he has done are the songs that were more centric to what was going on. So things like What's Going On, right? Mercy Mercy Me, you
Yes.
know Inner City Blues.
Absolutely.
So my personally, I like those songs a lot better, but you can't help but put on Sexual Healing when you're having a nice romantic evening with the woman. You know what I mean? Those songs will never be
Or
topped.
when he did
you
that,
know
or when he did that, that national anthem at the Lakers.
oh
Yes.
oh wow
83. Yes. That was a
oh wow
moment.
so just an icon of music that can never ever be forgotten. And sad the way he went out, I believe, which was on his birthday,
The day
um
before.
day
by his,
before,
by his
shot
father.
by his father. Who was remorseful after the situation, but just a tragic ending to such a great life, and someone who was just so full of life and staying positive and spreading all that love in his music. So shout outs to Marvin Gaye, man. You did your
Well,
thing.
I got a quick note. Well, Bill Cosby used to say he used to listen to Miles Davis Kind of Blue every day when he first started his comedy career, because that was like his energy juice. I listened to Marvin Gaye Was Going On at least once a week, the whole album from start to finish,
Wow,
just to get
wow.
my juices flowing and
I
to
think
see what
I,
my
I
mind.
think I think I need to follow that. I think I need to follow suit because because when you said it, I understand. I get where you went with that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like I understand, and that's something that we have to just get more in tune with our ancestors, man, because they had a message, all of them,
Right.
yeah,
and it might have been through music, it might have been through different things, it might have been through poetry, it might have been through just straight up writings. You
yeah,
know what I mean? But our ancestors always was talking to us, man, and we always got to get back in tune with it. You know what I'm saying? And and that just segued me into who I um paying homage to, and that's the great Ray Charles. That's
Mm.
Ray Charles Robinson Sr.
Another one.
Yeah, yeah. Perseverance. If perseverance was a person,
wow,
if like you know what I'm saying, like if surviving was a person, like everything about this man, when you look at his story, when you look at what he's done for the history of music, how can you do that and you're blind?
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? You are physically blind. No,
Yeah,
no, producer, put that back up, man. Listen, you know what I'm gonna advocate for in this moment. In this moment, they're gonna stay up. You understand what I'm saying? We'll be the background. We the
yeah,
background singers from now on. How
yeah,
about that? You know what I'm saying? We want Ray Charles to stay up as long as we talking about it.
That's
We
yeah.
right.
want Marvin Gaye to stay up as long as we're talking about it. We want Michael Jackson to stay up as long as we're talking about him. You
We need
feel
to
me?
start. I'm gonna start spending 3 picks of each.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Camouflage.
yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter because it's about them. It's not about us.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean?
That's
I don't
right.
care if
That's right.
anybody see me.
That's
You
right.
understand what I'm saying? I'd rather these men who help create who I am
That's right.
be on the spotlight. You understand what I'm saying? So yeah, Ray Charles is all right. So I'm gonna read what they got here. Was an American singer, songwriter, pianist, a composer. Among friends and fellow musicians, he preferred being called Brother Ray. He was often referred to as the genius.
Mm.
Charles was blinded during childhood, possibly due to glaucoma. Charles pioneered the soul music genre during the 1950s by combining blues, jazz, rhythm and blues, and gospel styles into the music he recorded for Atlantic. He contributed to the integration of country music, rhythm and blues, and pop music during the 1960s with his crossover success on ABC Records, notably with his two modern sound albums. So when you look at a man like this, and that's just a little scratch on it, right? So they said in 1960 he made Georgia on My Mind. People know about that song. George, you know that song, right?
Oh
All
yeah.
right. And
So
then the amount of people that he influenced, Nat King Cole, Quincy
yeah,
Jones, Frank
yeah,
Sinatra, all of these men that he's touched their lives to make them better people. And then these men also touch the lives of the rest of us. Man, listen, Ray Charles, man, you couldn't see, but listen, you
powerful.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, look, I mean, also think about, remember, Stevie Wonder was known as, he called him Uncle Ray. You know what I mean? When he first, little Stevie Wonder first came on the scene. So that's another influence that we see what he's done in his career. So Ray
Oh, yeah.
Charles was like the foundation behind all of it. And then everybody
Yeah.
else just came off and, did their own thing. But Ray Charles deserves so much more credit than what he's gotten.
Right, right. And then I've been watching a few documentaries that made me realize that I need to give Ray Charles his flowers, like, to be honest with you. And Ray
Oh, yeah.
Charles, you the man.
And Jamie Foxx did the damn thing playing them too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh,
That
yeah. Oh,
was
yeah.
one of the best
So,
stuff we've ever seen.
not for nothing, we go into our next segment, which is current events. All right. And usually we get a raw and all that other good stuff. But again, prayers out to our to the Evening Rush Network, Sean Dawn. Current events. We got today, and I'm gonna be honest with you. It's singing New York City. No disrespect to you, Zach. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's really New York City.
Why would I
But
take offense to that?
I don't know.
I mean, I feel like you included me.
Listen, you got
Okay,
New York State in mind, so that's
You
where
know
we
what I'm
are,
saying?
right?
I
Yeah.
hear you. I hear you. I hear you. But current events. Eric Adams. Joe, I need you to speak to this because Joe is
Oh boy.
usually my
Well,
man. Joe
well,
is usually the man on the streets with this, right? So
well,
Eric Adams appoints for school chancellor and NYPD, the head boss of NYPD to black folk.
yes, you had me cracking up with your status the other day. You said he's trying to turn New York into Wakanda. But I'm happy that Eric Adams is doing this because he's trying to set a standard within his new reign. And I'm all for it. Unfortunately with Eric Adams, the only thing I feel that's a negative to it is a lot of people that he put in power. I know of them. Not with these two appointments, but other appointments that I know. And I give them the side eye because I know that they probably have other hidden agendas. But as long as they stick to the message of getting this city back to where we were, that's what I mean. Like,
Where were we? Where were we, Joe?
well, I mean, pre-pandemic, but in the sense of, well, I'll give you an example with David Banks. David Banks he was the former, he created the Eagle Academy, which was an all-boys school in New York City, in the Bronx, and in Harlem. And one of the things that David Banks recently said is that he want to add more days and make longer hours for school days.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
I don't
nobody's trying to hear that who work in education right now. I said, absolutely not. I said, we're trying to get the opposite of that right now. Because you can get less out of that. So when I saw that, I was like, this is what we have to deal with. This is going to be our new chancellor making these statements.
Me personally, I think that if you incorporate what did work during the pandemic along with what works in regular time, which is in person and such, where you say, okay, a little remote and then a little bit, you know what I mean? You understand what I'm saying? Maybe a balance per se.
Well, the reason why they're trying to get rid of the remote is because it takes away from the in person, and they feel that they could do a better job in person. Eric Adams has been quoted as saying that he thinks that 400 people can be on a Zoom call at one time. This is what he said. So when I heard him say this, I'm like, I don't know how I feel. I don't know how I feel about that. That's not
because then you're just throwing away homeschooling. Like you're telling people who homeschool like their method doesn't work.
Listen, I've seen kids during the pandemic virtually. I am so glad that we're allowed to do in-person programming right now because the kids do so much. There's only so much time. Even adults can be in front of a computer or a screen getting things done. You lose interest. You lose your focus. You need to have personal interaction. So
It's true.
you know,
It's
you need
true.
this is a common fact of life. You need personal interaction. You cannot be in front of like this is great, but I can't wait for the moment where we have our own session in person. You know what I mean? That's so
And that's why I went to you on this topic, because I know that you have to study that section of your life, you know, dealing, because you're part of, you know,
He's living in that dynamic right
living in
now.
it right now. I see it every day.
So Eric Adams said because of that year and a half of remote learning.
Absolutely.
But
Yep.
me personally, and that's just my opinion, I think a balance between the two actually will work towards what our new school chancellor is trying to do. Because I don't think that you're not taking my kids away from me more hours than you already do. I'm sorry. I like my kids. I'm sorry. Some people don't like their kids.
Yeah, I do too.
I
Can't
like my
tell?
kids.
You can't tell I like mine too.
Yeah, I
He
like
wanna
my
jump
kids.
in.
So
He wanna
yeah,
jump in on us.
you want to take my
Hey, it's funny because me and my wife was just talking about this subject last night because we started talking about things that my son was coming home from school. Mind you, he's in TK, which is like before kindergarten, and the stuff that he's been learning that we've had to counter, you know. And I'm just like, okay, you starting them out so young and teaching them certain things. So yeah, I look at it that way too, because my son was on, last year he was in pre-K on this virtual thing, and this is an age where they need to socialize. But at the same time, I don't want him stuck all day with people that's gonna be feeding his mind with a bunch of junk that I don't even agree with.
And that's a topic for another day, Zach.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. Like I hear you, and trust me, we could go all day with that one. So what I want to do is I want to give props to the sister who is the new NYPD. What's that called? What's her position?
She's the commissioner. Like she's
The commissioner, NYPD commissioner, like Commissioner Gordon. You're right. Yeah, I'm bugging. No Batman, right? So yeah, the NYPD commissioner is a sister, the first sister ever, the first black sister ever, and I want to give props to her. We usually would have claps going on for that.
Her name is Keechant Sewell. She's a Queens native.
And like one of our writers wrote in, Wakanda forever. Something, the reason why I want to skip past it, and I'm not really skipping past what Eric Adams has done, politics as usual, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to sit there and study on that. I want to study on something that's really hitting our neighborhoods really hard, and that's the gun violence issue. Joe spoke on the fact that he was woken up out of his sleep recently to about 10 or more gunshots right outside his window. It's all too common in our neighborhoods.
Yes.
One issue that made me bring it up is our ox. Like, we talk about the ox in the stores and like, oh, ox, yo, what up, ox? And I thought it was a code. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't mess with the ox. You know what I'm saying? And it was a 20-year-old brother who got gunned down from a dude that he just finished giving him a free sandwich.
I saw that.
You know what I'm saying? He just finished giving him a free sandwich and he was gunned down. And me personally, I'm like, I'm taking it back because there's nothing about the ox that make me want to do that. You know what I mean?
I never had no bad experiences with them myself,
Never. I actually, you said you didn't mess with the ox. It was funny. No. I remember growing up, somebody tried to do. They came from behind the counter with swords. What you gonna do? Like, they're always armed. So to hear that they're being attacked like that, that's
right. But that goes into what the whole theme of this point was. There was an unspoken street code. And there's a lot of them, right? There was supposed to be a lot of them in our lives, right? So it's like, what happened to them? You understand what I'm saying? Because it was an unspoken street code that the ox was off limits. We don't rob the ox or nothing like that. So does that go into what's going on in society today right now?
That goes back to that segment of, what was it, youth wasting on the young? These kids is not getting these kids is not getting schooled properly, man. Like they're not getting the OGs, like
There's
you
no
mentioned in that episode, that they're not getting schooled. The OGs are not taking time no more to school them, and they're not listening anyway.
There's no
Right.
respect. There's no respect for the elders anymore. They
Nah,
feel
man.
like it's
Right.
their time. They're not trying to hear anything that we have to say. I mean, I consider myself an elder because I'm older and being
Yeah.
working in that environment. They don't care about what we have to say. They're trying to live their life. So they're not afraid to die. They don't fear death. They
I
don't
mean,
fear
there's no code.
anything.
There's
I
no
hear you.
code anymore. There's no code
No.
anymore.
They don't feel death, or they don't feel wasting their lives away in the consequences of what their actions are. Right. I mean, basically, right. So what I'm going to say is right now, there's two topics that we were supposed to speak on in current events, and I believe we can bring them back next week or what have you. One is climate change. There's things going on in our cities, in our neighborhoods that we really can't explain. So we're going to talk about that maybe next week. And then also that's happening, the spike in COVID cases across the city, across the nation, across the world.
Here
Like
we
it's
go
happening
again.
in sports. People are closing things down. So we're gonna have to talk about that, you know what I'm saying, as we go along. But something that was really deep to me, Joe brought up, you know what I mean, and it deals with mental health. Let's throw it up there. The you know what I mean for this week. You know what I mean is basically a meme that we throw up there, and we speak to it, right? And we're gonna leave it up there. Like I said, we're gonna leave it up there because that's what we're highlighting right now is the meme itself. And it says this is what depression. So for those who's on Spotify or those platforms that can't see what we're talking about, the meme it says this is what depression can look like, and it has pictures of famous stars who suffered depression, and they're no longer with us. And
Most of them suffering from or died from drug overdoses or suicide.
correct, and that's the way they went out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Depression is what the mental torture they were going through, and their outlet caused them to leave here.
You
And
want
you
to talk
got
about
people
some of them?
like
We got
um,
Robin Williams, Whitney
mm,
Houston, Chris Farley, Marilyn
Kurt
Monroe,
Cobain,
Kurt Cobain. We have oh gosh, what's
Andrew
Anthony
Bourdain.
Bourdain. Like a lot of these,
Andrew Bourdain.
these are people that were is that Amy Winehouse is another
Yes.
one. And these are some of the people we know their stories, and we're just like, it's sad because these are stories, lives that could have been saved. These are lives that could have been changed, but
yeah,
we
yeah,
didn't know of their depression. We didn't know of their drug use, and what causes these issues, modern day, everyday things that they were going through. And
yeah.
on paper, it looked like they had the best of lives. But then when it turns out that either they committed suicide or had an overdose because they were dealing with depression,
Yeah.
it's
I
like,
want to
wow.
say something real quick. When it comes down to depression, and I heard it recently. I think a comedian, I think it was Michael Che, said it. And the funny part is, he said depression is a rich person's
Disease.
rich person's disease. And I wouldn't say a rich person's disease. I just say that it's someone who actually, on in reflection of their lives, they think their lives should be better. That's the reason why they're depressed. You understand what I'm saying? So I think that people that's on the path of greatness suffer depression,
Yeah.
but their depression boosts them to greater paths. If y'all feel where I'm coming from.
Yeah, it's kind of like the the most greatness and growth comes when you're hit by tragedy. At least that's what happens for the greats. Because they take it as a catapult to bring them to where they want to be, and we don't see their depression because they're in the limelight. So we don't see the
Right,
struggle, what goes
right,
on behind closed doors, or what it took for them to get where they at, especially with the ridicule and everything they suffer from family and in their personal lives. So yeah, I mean it's definitely a real issue.
yeah, definitely, man. And Joe, I mean, I'm thankful for you even bringing this up because I think I suffer from it at times. I'm pretty sure that maybe you gentlemen suffer from certain different things. And you may want to highlight it at whatever point in time you want to. But I know for a fact, the reason why I'm depressed is because, as they say, I know it could be better, and that's straight up and down. I know it could be better. You know what I mean?
I personally, I deal with it differently. I mean, I'm always just trying to stay positive. I think, I come in from a household where when I woke up in the morning, it was, stickers on the mirror without brushing my teeth that says, the power of a positive mind. I can if I think I can, and go to the refrigerator to get some food, and it says, winners never quit and quitters never win. You bring these things out.
I'm going to hit you with that one, because what we got to do is we got to make sure that the Evening Rush get a shout out at this point. Yeah,
I'm not watching the clock.
So,
there we go.
Word from our network.
Let's go.
You heard.
Looking to podcast shows and do not know where to start? The Evening Rush Network can help you with that. Call us at 929-441-2417 or email us at theeveningrushnetwork@gmail.com for dates and prices. We got you for all your podcast needs. The Evening Rush Network. Tune in, subscribe, and share.
What's up, y'all? Your boy Shice, Mr. Talk of the Town, letting you know now the Evening Rush Network now has the app. So catch it on the Google Play and the App Store. And you can catch all your podcasts like The Evening Rush, Let's Talk Crazy, The Queens of NYC, Sex, Love, and Alcohol, Plug, TL Mac Fitness, I Am Nicole Clara, On Everything, and Get Into the Focus, and all in one place at the Evening Rush Network app. That's right. So catch all your favorite shows. What are you waiting for? Download it now.
Today's topic of the day. Oh, my bad. We are definitely sponsored by my favorite community organization. My favorite community organization is Big Apple Leadership Academy for the Arts, Baller. All right. We are on Instagram at Plugged MJ, at Plugged. That's PLUGGED MJ. Okay. And today's topic is Colin Kaepernick, from quarterback to activist. So what we're really discussing today is Colin in black and white. And this is one of 3 parts. Okay. Like I said, we agreed that it was more to it than to just be able to try to fit it into one little half-hour segment that our brains is going to be able to dissect it in so many different ways. All right. So my first question, and it's not really a question, it's really a statement, is what I've noticed about this documentary, or whatever we want to call it, is that it's actually shows us the making of a modern day revolutionary. Zachariah, do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I think I said it on a previous segment, where I just threw in there that I think we were talking about his football career, and I was like, maybe that wasn't his path to begin with, because we all have certain goals that we set out to do in life, and it's not always the path you end up on.
Right.
And sometimes you're led by circumstances that is actually leading you to where you're meant to be.
Right. So,
and I think that's what it was with this man.
Mm-hmm. Joe, is he a symbol of what a modern day revolutionary is?
I wouldn't necessarily say a symbol, but I say he's an example. There are different forms of revolutionaries, but I think the Colin Kaepernick is somebody who realized who he was as a person, or realized his overall purpose. And that doesn't necessarily make you revolutionary, but it makes you somebody who's aware of what society and what this life is and how this system affects us. So I'm happy for the fact that he was able to realize these things and do what he needs to do to continue not being a revolutionary, but being somebody who's for the cause, being somebody who's for the betterment of us. And all his actions showed nothing but that. So he's an example because there are a lot of other examples. But I mean, if that's how you have to get across to modern day people who want to find themselves within themselves, by all means, go ahead and do it.
Okay, so then I mean I hear you, and as in they do in cards and poker, I raise you because I feel like that he is the example of what modern day revolutionary is, because
I
when
would
you look
agree.
at in Colin in black and white, it's really there. It's there. Everything that he spoke on, everything that influenced him influenced us. Now, mind you, it influenced him on the end where it was something that was hidden from him at one point. Then all of a sudden, it was exposed to him, in all his glory. What I'm saying is that we know for a fact that all of these things, the parallels between what the revolution today and how did we get here, listen, it's sort of same, correct?
I mean, I think that the mindset of just what a revolutionary is, at some point they come to terms with, okay, I'm gonna speak, especially people in the limelight, they either have to make a choice. I'm gonna speak for what's right, and it's not about my personal endeavors anymore. And I think
Okay.
that's what a true revolutionary is. You're gonna put the issues or the stances where you need to be heard first before your own personal endeavors, you know. And he
Okay.
definitely did that by sacrificing his entire career. When the show first episode came on and he started comparing, which we're gonna get into, but the draft is compared to the slave auctions. I said, okay, he realizes he's never
Right.
playing football again.
Right. And I just wanted to lay out what a modern day revolutionary is, and that's what I feel like Colin Kaepernick is an example of. So what we're going to go into right now is Colin in black and white. In the beginning, right from the jump, he spoke on the draft combine and slave trade and the similarities to what it is. And I know I've spoken on it before I even seen Colin Kaepernick even speak on it. Whereas they're prodding and poking at us and making sure, seeing how fast we run and all of these different things. And what is different than the slave trade, correct, Joe?
It's the same instance of Dr. Frances Walsing in her book, The ISIS Papers. She also referred to this back in the day as far as the NFL and all sports. She was able to compare all sports to something that happened during the slave trade or during slavery. How they looked at us when they, a buck breaking is what they called it, and they broke us down and they demasculated us, sorry,
Mm,
emasculated us. So um there's so many parallels between the combine and the slave trade because it's there, except
right,
instead of selling our minds, you're selling your bodies. You're selling
right.
your bodies for money. And it's like, what can you get out of the body, right? So
Mm,
you get all of that out of the body, and then when the body dies, you just find another one that could come in and do the same thing. But it's like,
Replace it.
I think with the sports is now they're having to upgrade because they're realizing you can't get so much out of a certain age. So you get them younger, you get them faster, you get them stronger, or they make them more hybrid now. So it's a modern
So,
way of
so,
doing
so,
it.
Zach, what do you say to the same thing?
Well, I mean, it's definitely the same. The parallel is there. I mean, if you look at it, even the training camps, if you look at how he shows it, in that first episode where men are standing with their arms out and their arm span is being measured, their height is being measured, their speed, their agility, their how high they could jump. And it's the same thing they did in the slave auctions to see, all right, I want to know, I want to pay for the strongest slave that could work the longest and
The value.
work the hardest. You know what I mean? That boosted their value. Same thing with the value of a player. He's whoever's faster, stronger, has better hands, quicker
Right,
feet.
right,
He's
right.
higher in value, you know.
See,
And then
I
and then they're auctioned off, you know.
right, exactly, just like the slave trade, correct? Like,
Yeah,
oh,
absolutely.
who's going to get the biggest contract and such,
Right, right.
you know? Because I actually want people that hear this to go and do their own research. Like when you hear us, when we talk, we want you to go and do your own research.
Absolutely.
And when you say what makes a modern day revolutionary, if you ask that question, right? So you look at the things where you sit there and we think outside of the box. We think about the draft combine and the slave trade, how that's similar. What about our hair culture? You know what I'm saying? How we might wear our hair. I wear my hair in cornrows. Zachariah wears his beard full with a ponytail. Joe wear his dreads. We are very expressive when it comes to our hair. You understand what I'm saying? So um, Colin Kaepernick spoke to about the cornrows, right? So we talk about that, right? You talk about the hip hop influence, right? And that goes hand in hand. The hip hop influence plus the cornrows, right? And then the black barbershop, as as we want to call it. He speaks to all of these different things that he came into contact with. You guys actually live this. What do you say about those different things that actually influences us?
I'll
There you
I'll
go.
speak to what I got from Colin's aspect of life. I believe from what I saw, it was him discovering these aspects of it because he didn't necessarily grow up in those aspects. He
Right.
learned as he got older, and he's trying to figure them out.
Yeah.
Remember, he came from a mixed childhood. He had white adoptive parents, so they weren't necessarily there, getting him involved in this. But it was like a culture shock for him to realize that this was here, and he gelled to it like he was trying to find himself. And the fact that I think he gelled to the situation and it realized it was commonplace and he got comfortable. It's just him finding out who he was. He had idols. He talked about Allen Iverson being his idol, and Iverson is very known for wearing cornrows and when he was in the NBA.
So what's crazy is what makes it any different than our upbringing, because Allen Iverson is someone that influenced myself, yourself, and probably Zachariah.
Yeah.
And Zachariah, and I'm gonna be honest with you, when it comes down to the cornrows, Zachariah and myself goes a little back into just the history of cornrows in itself, right, Zachariah?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's what it was, and where we met, that culture, that the Hebrew Israelite culture was, that everybody has cornrows or braids. I mean, at one point, I had my beard braided. If you remember, I was a
Right, I
trendsetter
remember
with that one. I'm taking credit for that. I was trendsetting with that one.
that.
But the point is that when we were in a culture that we don't cut our hair, so that's like that was part of that culture. And if I'm not mistaken, you want to share a story about how Iverson actually got into that, was actually through our people.
Right. I mean, like, yeah. So what I want to do is I want to break it down, right? So we're breaking it down and saying what makes a modern day revolutionary. Say the parallels between the draft, combine, and the slave trade. What that is that we're recognizing today what they've already been doing, the process that they already been going through. You understand what I'm saying? And then we talk about the hip hop influence. We already know about that. That's major, right? And now what we're talking about is the cornrows, right? So, like I said, Zach talked about Allen Iverson, and Iverson was in VA. One of our brothers was in VA, and we had braids. That was what we were known for. That's what we did. And Allen Iverson used to come up in the shop, and my brother was one of them. The brother was one of them dudes that would look out for the sport, look out for the guy that's doing his thing in sports. You know what I'm saying? Like, listen, don't be in the streets doing no craziness, this, that, and the third.
Mhm.
And at the same time, drawing influence my people from my mans and them. Listen, he started getting his braids.
Yeah.
Am I going to say that's how that trend got set? Listen, I'll leave it for everybody else to figure out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you talk about the food and the seasoning, that's like, like everything sings to you when it comes down to our culture, right? And that's what the revolutionary is today. They accept every aspect of our culture. You know what I mean? And then they accept the things that goes against us, which is the cultural discrimination. There was a part in the episodes where they demanded him to cut his hair. Zach?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at first, his parents, you could tell they didn't like it, right? He shows that, But it wasn't until his baseball coach said, what is that hanging out the back of his hat? That's unacceptable. He's got to change that if he wants to play on this team, and end up calling his parents, and then that's when his parents brought it up to him at the dinner table. They tried to slide it in there, and Joe was talking about, what he was struggling with. I feel like it was also showing he was starving to get in touch with his culture because he knew it was a part of him, and he was raised by parents that were oblivious to that culture. Some scenes I felt like they were trying to portray, or he had say so to show that they meant well, but they were just so green that they didn't know how to approach the situation, and then their underlying biases that they came up with just came out, and they didn't even know how to raise a black son. You know what I mean? They don't understand the plight of a black man growing up in America, and
I kind of got that vibe as well. I got that
yeah.
vibe because it was like they meant well, but like you said, they didn't know how to do it.
No.
So they always looked at it as a phase. They were
And
like,
they weren't empathetic enough.
He'll get it. Like they were like, he'll get over this. It's a phase. Eventually, he's gonna grow out of it, and not realizing that it was part of his culture.
That's that white wishful thinking that maybe he won't grow up to be the black man that he is. Maybe we can whitewash him. You know what I mean? But yeah.
Yeah. So now we spoke on, okay, what makes a modern day revolutionary. So we're saying that, where they're aware of the times, right? That's basically what we're talking about with the draft combine, the slave trade. Culturally, aware of themselves, where it's like, yo, listen, this is what we do. We wear cornrows, we rock a beard, we rock out, we're, culturally in tune. In music, we're in tune. When you talk the influence of hip hop, because you talk about DJ Cool Herc. Our parentals, you know what I'm saying? Our parentals being involved is very important. Although his were white parents, adoptive parents, um, was, but they still were as important to his upbringing, because they allowed him to explore himself, to allow him to realize who he was and what he was going to be. You know what I mean? We talk about the neighborhoods. You talk about the black barbershop. Listen, we talk about that all the time. Joe, you know about it. You go in a black barbershop, get a trim up. You talking about all kinds of stuff, or you're experiencing all kinds of different things when it comes down to the community, when it comes down to who you are as a man. You know what I mean? Because they talk about a lot of different things of the past and the present.
The barbers were our therapists at one point in time. They were our original therapists. When we sit in the chair, not only are we getting the cut, but we also getting a good talking to, or we figure some stuff out. So that's what the barbershop meant to us in our communities. It helped us solve a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a barbershop jargon, or conversation that goes on if you go in there. I mean, coming up, I had that in my neighborhood, and Nakshawn, he grew up where I grew up, and he was a barber at our local barbershop. And
I remember.
So we used to hang out there, and it was, that was part of it. Yeah, but I feel like music, food, the barbershop, these are all essential parts of what Black culture is in America, and in the home. This is what you grow up around, and even down to what is called soul food. Am I wrong?
Right,
So.
because that was actually like tongue in cheek, a joke within the first few episodes, where it's like, oh, for his white mother, he'll salt and pepper everything. But then when he got a taste of that soul food, he ain't need no salt or pepper.
She was like, you might want to give him some salt. He's like, you don't need none.
Don't need none. I'm good. I need no
Right. That's also important in the revolutionary. Just to let y'all know, seasoning is important.
I mean, we see, people don't understand. There's a root of where it came from. In the slave days, the master would throw the slaves scraps, and you gotta make a meal out of something that is a scrap of an animal that's not necessarily usually eaten.
All right. So, I don't want to tarry, because you guys made some points in the next few statements. In the episodes, there was a statement made. It was called the white man's stamp of approval. That's what Cap talked about in an education. Can one of you speak on that, please?
Yes, I can personally speak on that. For what I've personally gone through, I could be clean pressed. I could have a 4.0 GPA. I could actually be of good standing as a black man. But if you're hearing it from me or someone like me, it doesn't make sense. But if I was to go to a white counterpart, male or female, it's almost like their word is better than mine. And people will listen to them more, especially when it comes to work, when it comes to education, when it comes to society. So getting a white man stamp of approval is, once you hear it from someone of their culture, it means something. I could have said the exact same thing and it don't mean anything, or people aren't listening to me. Like, it doesn't matter. And that happens every day. So we were trying to find our value. What's our value in our voice? And that's what it means. Or if you go through a way of living, that means more than a black way of living. So
Got
that's what I get of when I hear a white person stamp.
Because when you talk about it in 2011, Kelly William Bolar was convicted of a felony and sentenced to 5 years in prison for sending her daughters to a high-performing school outside of her school district, unknowingly breaking a law called boundary hopping. The judge reduced her sentence to 10 days in jail, 3 years for probation, and community service. She spent 9 days in jail and was unable to get her teacher's certificate under Ohio law due to the felony conviction now on her record. So you destroy someone's life because of,
They want a better education for their kids.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And Cap speaks to that. He says, in the land of opportunity, that law is meant to make sure poor, underprivileged folk don't better educate themselves without that white man's stamp of approval.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll move ahead because I don't think neither one of us need it. We don't need that. We got this. You know what I mean? The next one is getting a job
does not equal earning a living.
Getting a job does not equal earning a living. Zachariah.
And I think it just goes back to what he said. You know, it's been set up that way. You know, most higher paying jobs require higher education. Most schools, underprivileged communities do not provide adequate level of education. They don't even provide, you know, curriculum that sets you up for college, because they're not given the funding, because they're in the inner cities. And then, you know, the underprivileged communities, once you get out of school, you're either forced to settle for minimum wage jobs, which we spoke about on previous segments, or earning minimum wage. Like Kat points out, you'd have to work 140 hours a week, which he breaks down that is 24 hours a day, 6 days a week, just to make a living wage. And we're talking about just being able to pay rent and you pay your bills. How you gonna support a family on something like that?
A full
Right?
6-day week
So,
with
like,
just 1 day off, you know?
So going back to, you know, getting the white man stamp of approval, if you're not accepted into getting his approval to get into a college or to get that job, that higher paying job, then you're going to be stuck at the bottom of the totem pole, scraping and scratching for scraps. You know?
Because for one, most higher paying jobs require higher education, period.
Right. Yeah.
And then you have most schools in underprivileged communities do not provide an adequate level of education to get those jobs. So you got the system is basically against us, correct?
Yeah, exactly. But it was designed that way, you know.
Right.
I mean, you know, it's for a reason. You know, we talked about. I think we talked about this on more than one episode. They did a really great job. Cap did a great job of outlining these things, and I think where he was making the parallel with is that when he stepped onto the field, like it shows him trying out for JV as a freshman, and he's going up against this other freshman kid, this white quarterback that was from the Bay, and he was clearly way better than the kid, but they chose to go with him because in their mind he was the prototype that they were looking for. You know, and at that time, there was very few black quarterbacks in the NFL, I might add.
And then the funny part, the prototype goes in any world when it comes down to it, because that's what they look at it as.
Right.
You know what I mean? It don't have to necessarily be the quarterback. They make sure that they are in the lead when it comes to those higher paying jobs.
It's a standard. It's a standard that's being set. Like, if they have what their mind is, what their ideal person should be, if you don't meet those standards, you will never be accepted. with that rare exception of somebody who knows you, who may be of a different culture, and says, hey, let's take a chance on this guy, regardless of how he looks. I think we could mold him into becoming what we want him to be.
Or how he got the white man stamp of approval when his father got that coach theater to work with him over the summer.
Yeah,
He said, hey, coach, take a look at my boy. He's been working with Roger Theater in the summer. And he said, oh, really? Oh.
Yeah.
And then he mentioned that to the coach, and that got him that white man stamp of approval to even be considered for a quarterback position.
So, question, do we need that white man stamp of approval to be successful in America?
If you don't
if you want to live in their world, yeah. If you don't want to live in their world, no.
I would say this: if you don't, you got to work 10 times as harder, and eventually it's like almost coming to the point where you got to be above and beyond reproach. Politics don't apply to you just because you're that great, and then at that point they got to give it to you. You know what I mean?
Zach,
but
Zach, speak to what Cap was talking about because he broke down in different scenarios within those 2 episodes, like different ways that we're behind the 8 ball, so to say, right? We're behind the 8 ball. We know it, but he's trying to expose how it's happening.
Right.
It's what I'm noticing. Like when I watch it, he's trying to expose how it's happening. He's trying to make sure that we're fully aware of how we're getting screwed.
Yeah, and I think he was making the parallel of what he was going through in his football journey, but he's showing this is where it's happening on a grand scale in society. And he also mentioned, so it was about getting an equal education or being able to get an education adequate to make a living, getting a job to where you be able to make an adequate living. And then he went into statistics about getting a home loan, which is literally having to get the white man stamp of approval to get that loan, and he gave some stats, and he mentioned that in 2015, 27.4% of black applicants were denied mortgages, and that's more than twice than that of white applicants. And he also said that the ones that did get approved paid higher interest rates, usually. And that he said now, who's the top 3 lenders? JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, and Quicken Loans. And he said, and they're all owned by, guess who? The white man. And see, then he's this quote that he threw in there. He said, some people may say the system is broken. He said, I'm here to tell you it was intentionally built this way. And we know why it was built this way. Like somebody was talking earlier, I was engaged in a social media conversation, and somebody said, man, they tell us that slavery, they talk about it a little bit in school, but they don't tell us the truth about it. And the biggest thing that they don't tell us is that it's still going on today. It's just in an institutionalized form.
And that's a whole entire fact, brother. Like, and that's just just the tip of the iceberg when it comes down to the Colin Kaepernick story. He's opened up our minds to so many different ways to how we're getting screwed in a sense. But then he also opened up my mind to how many ways that we're actually open up our minds to how great we can be as a people if we just take that stance.
That's right.
Now, here's the thing. Just like you said, if we take that stance, how many people are actually listening to what Cap said? That's the problem. The problem is not Cap giving us the information. The problem is the people who are going to receive it and accept it. A lot, he got so much slack for this. It's almost like people are saying he's a sellout for doing this. I mean, no. When people find out the truth about things, when they find out what reality really is, you live off of what you learned, and that's what you're supposed to do.
And like I said, go ahead.
We talk about critical race theory. That's another form of it. They don't want us to know the things that really happen, so they rather not tell us at all.
You're right.
I was reading comments on a post that Dr. Umar posted about that white kid that broke onto his campus of the school he's trying to open up, and they want to press charges against this guy. And if you just read the comments, man, it's like so many people were just hating on his program, and not even talking about what he was talking about to get this white kid, you know, convicted or prosecuted for this. And you know, then I read a couple comments. It's just like, it's crazy how the self-hate is so heavy, you know. And then, you know, we're looking at situations like this. The Cap comes out with this documentary and he's being ridiculed for it when he's actually taking the stance of a revolutionary. And if you ask me, he will go down in history as one.
And that's exactly what I meant by the first question is this what a modern day revolutionary looks like? And a modern day revolutionary looks like so far is he's knowledgeable, he's compassionate, he's for the cause, he's working towards a cause, he's sacrificial, you know what I mean?
And he's fearless.
He's fearless, yeah. And just to say to you, Joe, to you, Zachariah, I look at you guys as the modern day revolutionaries, and I want you guys to continue on this journey with me, because as much as we're trying to dissect what Cap is doing, we're really trying to understand ourselves. You know what I mean? I know that for a fact.
Absolutely.
I know I'm trying to understand myself. I know Joe is still trying to understand himself. And I know for a fact that Zach, you're still trying to understand yourself. And with that, I appreciate you guys being on this journey. This is part 1 of 3. We don't have to really have to try to stretch it out, because anything we can say now, we can wait till later. And I love you guys, bro.
Love you guys too, man. Appreciate you more.
And that's Molly and Joe. Peace.